Kia ora te iwi and welcome to The Chew, coming at you from the Pūrākau studio in Te Atamira in Queenstown, New Zealand. Ko Arrowtown Dad tēnei, and today we are chewing the fat with Gemma Peacock. Welcome, Gemma.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. So what I'm going to do is ask you to introduce yourself, and then we're going to talk a little bit about where you grew up.
Sure.
Yeah.
My name's Gemma Peacock. I grew up in the Scottish borders and was born in Edinburgh, but raised in Peeblesshire, in the Scottish borders.
Right.
And I have ancestry on my paternal mother's side through the Argyll and Bute, Clan Campbell. So
Wow.
I'm exploring a lot of my ancestry at the moment.
Great.
Yeah.
Did you say the Clan Campbell?
Yeah.
Wow. You
Yeah.
come from a clan, just like the Highlander.
I know, right?
Nice. And so you were Scottish, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you were, so you did all of your schooling back home in Scotland?
I did, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I was also schooled in the Isle of Jersey in the Channel Islands for a while.
Right.
For a short time, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I haven't done a lot of travel over in Europe.
That's okay.
So where exactly are the Channel Islands?
The Channel Islands are a small cluster of islands in between the UK and France.
Oh, right, there.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's called the Channel Islands. Duh. I
Yeah,
get
in
it.
the Channel.
Right. In the English Channel, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's just a small cluster. Jersey's it's the biggest one. Yeah.
And so how did you end up in the Channel Islands? Because, of course, Scotland's up the top there.
Yeah, right.
And then you come
Yeah,
down and
yeah.
went down to the Channel Islands. How did your family end up there?
Well, we always holidayed in Guernsey in the Channel Islands. My great aunt lived there for a while, and my dad so happened to get a job on Jersey.
Right.
And so we moved. I think I was about 8 or 9, yeah.
Okay.
So it was a big difference going from a school where I was only one of 7 in the class in Scotland to like a group of 30 in the class. Yeah.
One of 7? So
Yeah.
in Scotland, you were in one of 7?
Yeah, in Peebles, it's a small town.
Right.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Wow, that's fantastic. And so you went to like what I would call a regular school, which is 30 kids in a class.
Yeah.
And so what was your childhood like?
It was really good.
Yeah.
We had lots of adventures. I think that's where I got like my travel bug from.
Right.
Yeah, there's quite a few members of my family who have travelled quite far. And when I go back through my ancestry now, I can see that we're kind of all over the world, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, sorry if I mixed this up, but you went from Scotland to the Channel Islands.
Yeah.
And did you stay there?
No, we went back to Scotland.
Again. Right.
Yeah.
And were you still going to school when you went back to Scotland?
Yeah, I went back to the same school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yep. Mm-hmm.
And there were like 6 people this time.
I think there was more. There was like 9.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Yeah.
And,
so I loved going back to my original school because I'm quite an introverted person.
Are you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I am. I love small groups of people.
Wow.
So when I went back to that school, I was like, oh, I can relax.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Did you find it any kind of culture difference between life in the Channel Islands versus life back in Scotland?
Yeah, there was quite a large French influence.
Really?
Yeah, that's where I learned most of my French there.
Wow.
It was quite popular within the school. A lot of kids just spoke French more than they spoke English.
Wow.
Because I was living in an area called Grouville in Jersey. And yeah, so I went back to Scotland with I guess more knowledge, because at that time the English curriculum was slightly ahead of the Scottish one.
Was it?
Yeah, so I found that really hard to quickly catch up with them.
Of course.
And then go back to the Scottish curriculum. I was like the brainy kid.
The brainy one. Oh, right.
For a short time. Yeah.
So you enjoyed your childhood growing up then?
Yeah.
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 What kind of things would you do back there? Is it similar to life in New Zealand? You know, we're quite an outdoorsy sort of country here in New Zealand, and so children at a young age end up going out, doing fishing, doing all that, going out in nature a lot.
Yeah.
Was life like that?
Yeah, well, my childhood wasn't without its challenges, shall we say. But whenever those challenges did come up, like my sisters and I would always just get out the house and go hiking, sometimes all day.
Really?
In the Scottish borders, in the mountains. Well, there are hills there. And yeah, just keep climbing, you know, in the Innerleithen area. So yeah, it's very like New Zealand to get out and about and feel the calming effects of nature.
Of nature.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that connection to the energies that are around.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. You know, I often wonder. I haven't been to the UK yet. Like, it's just so terrible. I've got so many plans to go over there because so much of my ancestry comes from there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm English, Irish, and Scottish on different sides of my family. So
Yeah.
I need to go back there at some point.
Yeah.
But this is about you. So
We can talk later.
yeah. So you finished your high schooling in Scotland?
Yeah, in Peeblesshire, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, what did you do after that?
I hot-footed it up to Edinburgh like as quick
as you could.
Yeah, I was desperate.
Get me out of here.
Yeah. Not that, no disrespect to my hometown, but I was just desperate to get out. It was like this itchy, burning feeling like in the year prior. And I went up to Edinburgh, went straight into university. And did that for 4 years. It wasn't easy.
Right.
Yeah.
What did you major in?
In psychology, applied psychology.
Wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I got through it just, and worked in hospitality for a bit, and then I got stuck into the social services industry.
In Scotland?
Yeah, in Scotland.
Right.
So I supported and advocated for people, vulnerable people of like all walks of life, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned the travel bug when you were at Channel Islands. So would you do travelling? Did you do a lot of travel around that time or after that time?
No, in fact, there was a good 5 years where I didn't travel at all.
Wow.
I had like quite chronic anxiety for a while.
Yeah.
And had a work burnout experience.
Really?
Yeah.
At a young age?
Oh, yeah.
Crazy.
I was working in residential childcare in Scotland, and that is a very challenging job.
Wow.
Yeah. Working in care homes and things like that for children. And so I took a good 6 months of just doing like casual employment and trying to build myself back up.
Wow.
And it was like starting from scratch. And then I remembered the travel bug. I remembered like, this is something I love doing. Let's connect back to that. And I started to remember lots of things from my childhood that I loved doing that I'd lost touch with.
Right.
And so I just started doing all those things again and got back on my feet.
Yep.
And a short time later, packed my bag and left Scotland for good.
Right.
Yeah.
So as soon as you left Scotland, you, in terms of living, you stopped living there as well.
Yeah.
Where was the first place you went?
Thailand.
Right, good old Thailand. Got to go somewhere hot with beaches, cheap. Yeah.
And I was in a good space then, so I went away with my friend Lindsay, and we'd grown up together. So we went around Thailand, got severe food poisoning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as you do. And then I went over to Australia by myself.
Wow.
And did a working holiday visa there.
Why did you pick Australia? Was it just seemed like you heard good things about it, or as far away from Scotland as you can get?
People joke about that. My dad often says, "Oh gosh, you went to New Zealand. You couldn't get. It's communicating quite a lot. You couldn't get further away from us." But yeah, I don't know why I picked Australia. It was just like a knowing,
Right.
like that's where I'm to go.
Right.
And then when I got to Australia, the knowing became get to New Zealand.
Right.
And I'm here and I don't have any pull to go anywhere else.
Right.
You know?
That's fantastic.
It was like a really strong communication, yeah.
So, you obviously would have known about New Zealand before you went to Australia.
Yeah.
But why the decision to come to New Zealand when you were in Australia? I mean, that's a beautiful place to live as well.
Stunning. It's
Yeah.
got a very special place in my heart because I feel like it's very eat, pray, love, but I feel like I found myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, under a rock somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was just a good time because I was like hardly working
Yeah.
and just doing a little bit here and there.
Right.
And had all this time to just do all the things I loved.
Right.
And that's when I realised, you know, I don't want to spend the rest of my life working this hard, you know.
Yeah.
I want to just be in the chill.
Yeah.
But when it comes to New Zealand, I mean, I have family here.
Oh, wow, that's good.
Yeah, I have my cousins up in Auckland. They're exploring their ancestry and have been for a while, and they are Te Atiawa.
Oh,
yep,
wow,
Wellington.
fantastic.
Yeah, so we're having good kōrero about all of that stuff.
Nice.
And then my mum's sister is in Gisborne, where you're from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we've hung out a couple of times. And then on my journey down from, because I was living in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland,
Yeah.
my journey down driving my tiny little Mazda the length of the country, I stopped off at various points where I have relatives that came here many, many years ago and are buried in both Nelson and Ashburton.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Ah, so you've got a little bit. You've got quite a lot of connection to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And so when you first arrived in New Zealand, did you come straight to Queenstown or?
No, I flew in to Auckland to meet my cousins because we had never met before.
Right.
But I
right.
knew they were here. They're my paternal cousins.
Yeah.
And I flew in, I think it was just 3 or 4 weeks before the country closed.
Right.
I had gone to Bali in between. I had left Australia, gone to Bali, and I had met my sister, my younger sister in Bali, who was doing a yoga course, and she was talking to me about COVID, and she was like, you know, it's like actually a thing. You should maybe go to New Zealand sooner.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Daisy, overreacting, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
something, I listened to her,
Yeah. Great.
and if I hadn't,
Yeah.
I would have been stuffed.
Yes. Yes.
So I
Yeah.
got into the country a few weeks before the first lockdown.
Wow. That was lucky.
Very lucky.
Yeah.
And so I was staying with my cousins and ended up, like, you know, hunkering down with them for 3 months.
Yeah.
Getting to know each other very well.
Yes,
as
I
you can
bet.
imagine.
Because you're never allowed out of the house. You know?
No,
Yeah.
literally. So yeah, we had a good time, and
That's
then I came to
funny.
Queenstown. Yeah.
I for some reason I thought you'd been in New Zealand longer. It just feels like you've been here a long time.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I know.
I feel like I've known you longer than when
know.
COVID hit. But,
yeah, I feel that too.
Yeah.
Maybe on some level I've been here a lot longer.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So, was it after lockdown or pretty much as soon as you were allowed to travel? Was that when you made the decision to come to Queenstown?
The minute we heard, my cousins were like, oh, right, you're off. Because the minute I heard flights were happening again,
Yeah.
I went straight online
Yeah.
and booked tickets to Queenstown
Yeah.
because when I was in Australia, I was following a lot of people on the gram.
Right.
And one of them was the Queenstown Life, Jane Guy.
Right.
Yeah. And I saw her images of Arrowtown and I was like, that's where I need to go. That's it. I'm off. So the minute we hit level 2, I think it was,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
booked a one-way flight to Queenstown.
Wow.
And I did like a FaceTime
Yeah.
of a room on Facebook Marketplace.
Really?
Yeah, a FaceTime of the room. And then I got picked up from the airport and taken to my new house, you know. It's
just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, was it always so effortless for you to just travel and go to places and just sort of set up? Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because that just all sounds too easy, to be honest, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just all worked out.
I find it's to do with like gut instincts.
Right.
Things are easier for me if I listen to my gut and act on that, whether it makes sense or not.
Great.
If I go into the logical mind about a situation or a decision and go over and over, it becomes like, you know that saying, a square peg in a round hole?
Yeah.
And then I know it's not for me.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel right.
If it doesn't flow like I just said, then it's not the path. But yeah, it has been pretty easy. And when I came to Queenstown, like, it was my first experience of being in community again for years.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it just sucked me in and hasn't let me go.
Right,
you know?
yeah. Because you've really felt that community spirit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you had any, you know, was there any kind of culture shock coming to New Zealand or even Australia from Scotland? Or was it just felt like another place to call home?
No culture shock at all. It was the opposite.
Really?
Yeah. In terms of, like, I think I've always been trying to understand more about, I guess, my connection to Indigenous Celtic, you know, the back then ways of doing stuff.
Right.
And so it was very refreshing when I went to both Australia with the Aboriginal culture and then even more so coming here and learning about Te Ao Māori, that I was like, see, this stuff, this is how I want to live. Like that holistic way of viewing things and re-indigenizing the way we think about everything.
Fantastic.
Makes sense compared to what I was experiencing back home with anxiety. That stint of having anxiety, it was like there was no questioning from the doctor about, like, oh, hey, so what's out of kilter in your life? Like, do you maybe think you're working too much? Do you get out in nature at all?
Yeah.
You know, there was, do you have close connections with people, or are you quite lonely? Like, there was no discussion. It was just like, oh, what you're experiencing sounds like anxiety, so I'm going to prescribe you this.
Some pills, yeah.
And yeah, I had a good conversation with my mum with the pills in my hand, and I was like, I held them and I was like, they are not meant to enter my body.
Yeah.
So I went and dispensed them back at the pharmacy.
Nice.
And I was like, no, there's something else. And it was a book by Johann Hari that I read that was called, I think it was called Disconnections or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's really actually talks about the elements of Te Whare Tapawha, but not in that.
Really?
Not in that.
Yeah, in a different
wording.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. Talks about, you know, community gardens and getting out and about.
But essentially it's the same kind of model.
Yeah. Finding your people, having quality conversation over the one you want to leave, you know, or, So.
Fantastic. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about your about the business that you're with. So the Kiwi Kit Community Trust.
That's us.
Yes. Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about your business.
Sure. So the Kiwi Kit Community Trust offers programs, events, workshops to the migrant community.
Right.
But we also connect the whole community as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've got some pretty cool things in the loop, and we've been going since 2020.
Right.
Yeah. So back when I lived in Queenstown the first time, I was like volunteering with Danny and Franco, just, going around the coffee shops. None of us could really afford a coffee, and we were like, right, how can we do this? How can we, noticing the gaps that were around at that time, especially for the migrant community. We were coming up with solutions. And then I moved to Auckland for my social services job and visa.
Right, that's good.
Yes, had a really great experience up there and living in a tiny house. And then I came back and got stuck into both working at Central Lakes Family Services casually and also at the Kiwi Community Trust as the ops manager.
Right, fantastic.
Yeah.
And so the focus for your guys' business is the migrant community, right?
Yeah.
So that's obviously a key focus here. There's a huge migrant population, especially workers, the working class living here, migrants. Mm-hmm. So do you feel there's not enough focus on helping migrants in this region? Is that the reason why you have your trust at the moment?
Yeah. So not everyone has their basic human needs met.
Yeah.
You just have to look at the car parks at night to see that.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
And that's really difficult because without those migrant workers, and it's not just migrants that are homeless, but without those workers, the town wouldn't function in the way it does. So it wouldn't generate the kind of income that it does.
Yeah.
And so we are here to be that platform for migrants to come and have a voice. We do the Great Migrant Brainstorm annually.
Yeah.
And so migrants can come together and discuss the gaps and offer solutions, because there's I said the other day, we have the most over-skilled baristas and cleaners.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And everything in the world. These people
crazy.
have multiple degrees, some of them, and they're pouring you your morning coffee.
Yeah.
So there's that disconnect from coming from your a certain status in your home country and having worked towards your qualifications and experience, and then when you move to another country, not just New Zealand, but when you move here, it's very difficult to, especially if you obtained that qualification in a second language country.
It's not recognised, is it?
Yeah, it's difficult to go straight into that profession.
Yeah.
Most people have to take a massive drop down in using their skills.
Yeah.
Which is quite demotivating.
Yeah.
It's quite a privilege to be able to work in a job where your values are aligned. So a lot of people are having to do jobs they don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah.
Just to kind of have a different start, a fresh start somewhere else. And
so do you find, I know it's probably hard to quantify this, but I'll ask the question anyway. So do you find that a large chunk of the migrant community here feel disillusioned, or do they still feel a sense of, that the future can still look bright for them?
I suppose I don't really want to generalise too much, but a lot of the people I've been speaking to recently have had this kind of pull to come here.
Really?
Yeah. And not often knowing the reasoning behind. So they've come, a bit like me,
Right.
Knew we had to kind of come here, and were drawn to coming here, and that's how they are in Queenstown, So it's,
right.
Sometimes been that case, and so I think, the challenges are kind of getting worse, I would say.
Yep.
With the cost of living and stuff like that. So I think sometimes it becomes pretty hard to think of having a future here.
Yeah.
And that's what we as a country run the risk of, is losing these people that have contributed to the community's thriving. Yeah.
They're a massive contribution to the community. I was really disappointed about what happened over COVID in particular, because a lot of people got direct direct financial assistance from the government, but many of the migrant community didn't, you know?
Yeah, and even the ones that did, it took ages
Yeah, right.
to get that. So what that did was cause mass panic. And a deterioration in mental health.
Yeah,
Because if you don't get your basic needs met,
Yeah.
it ain't going to be pretty.
yeah.
So there was a lot of dysregulated people in our community that had to rely on food banks
On
and still
charity.
do,
Yeah,
you know?
Yep, totally. You know what was interesting for me, because you know, I'm okay. I'm in a good job. My job wasn't affected by COVID, so I had the satisfaction of just like watching it all play out. But one thing I noticed was that we lost a lot of the migrant community. They flew home. You know, they went back to their home countries as much as they didn't want to, but a lot of them didn't have any alternatives.
Yeah.
There was just no financial assistance for them, right?
No.
Then this whole shift in Queenstown happened, where it was like, we need to stop focusing on the tourism market. We need to find a better way to live. We need to change the way things work.
Yeah.
COVID is teaching us this lesson. And as soon as COVID went away, what happened? We've gone straight back to what we were before. And now everyone's like, tourism. It's the same thing all over again.
Yep.
And now they're demanding that migrant workers come back and work again.
When look how they were treated the first time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And, you know, the R21 visa came through eventually, but most of those people who had pre-COVID already applied and were in the queue for residency and chose to call this place their home.
Yeah.
And be contributing members in society,
Yeah.
those people lost out because that R21 visa took too long for many people to come through. And
so
they're the people that had to go home and the ones that hadn't applied either. Yeah. So it wasn't, some other countries did it much better, Canada being one,
Yeah.
where the minute they've noticed this issue with, they kind of, as I recall, they did like a blanket residency visa for all contributing migrant workers much earlier in the day. And
Right.
I think that's a reoccurring problem that we have as a country, is we come to the table too late.
And even, I just find it's a dishonest conversation, because they're happy to consider alternatives when we're in that emergency situation, but as soon as we come out of it, it's like, that was an anomaly. Like, we don't have to worry about it. Let's just go back to business as usual, which is, let's go back to the tourism dollar. Let's go back to requiring migrant workers, you know, not paying them a living wage, you know, and we've just gone back to where we were before. We learned no lessons. For me, we learned no lessons from what COVID showed us.
Did you see the wording in the media regarding migrants throughout COVID? So throughout COVID, migrants were hailed as like what was the wording? The frontline heroes?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And then the minute COVID was kind of, well, we weren't in that state of emergency anymore, they became the low-skilled population.
Yes.
So notice that shift in language.
Yes.
Our words are very powerful.
Very powerful.
And when you read that about yourself, if you identify as being a migrant, like, and keep rereading that you're just low-skilled despite having multiple degrees, it does shift something.
I know. I hate it. I hate that, because the businesses that require it, they're happy to keep pushing that message. Mm-hmm. We want low-skilled migrant workers, you know. So, again, I just think the whole thing's dishonest. We're not really having an honest conversation about what's good for the community. Mm-mm. And what I mean is the community, the people. Yeah. I don't mean the businesses. No. You know.
It's all about the people being well, whole, being able to express themselves, you know. Yeah.
Like your community is only good when all of its community, when all the people are, functionally happy.
Yeah.
You don't have to be all filthy rich and rolling in it. It's just being able to afford your day-to-day and being able to afford to live and not have to cram 20 people in a house, that kind of thing. So anyway, let's shift focus. I'm sorry, I could go on about this.
No, I could talk all day about this stuff.
Yeah, because it does.
Gets me going.
It bothers me. Yeah, it really does bother me. So here's an interesting question for you.
Okay.
So the Kiwi Community Trust, how do you connect in, or do you connect in to the local Māori business community?
Yeah, so we were nominated for the Tangata Tiriti Award.
Yes, you were.
Yes. And so that was a beautiful surprise in the sense of I've known what KUMA's been doing and I've admired what KUMA's been doing for some time. But I don't think I was really aware that we could be recognised in that way until it came through in an email. And I phoned the rest of the team and I was like, can you believe it? And they were all like jumping for joy because it just feels so good to have that recognition.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so some of the things that we're quite big on is supporting kaupapa Māori initiatives in the region.
Yeah.
Especially like Toa, the stage play.
Yes.
Behind the scenes, we very quietly made sure that we tautoko that.
Nice.
Because it's very important to us to take a different lens on mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot is not working.
Yeah.
So let's try and go to our communities and support these solutions, these creative outlets to the solutions.
Yeah.
And get people, like Toa inspires people to tell their story through the arts, or through whatever your chosen outlet is. But let's think of these things differently. Yeah. How can we encourage others to self-expressing, to start talking, instead of brushing mental health under the rug all the time,
or just sucking it up and trying to soldier on, despite mental health issues you might be going through.
Yeah.
I'm sure the migrant community have even more reason to be affected by mental illness or mental health issues.
Yep,
in
exactly.
this community.
Yeah.
So fantastic. So for those of you out there, what Gemma's talking about is Harapata's play Toa, which is a strong focus on suicide prevention. It's a suicide story, but the message is about suicide prevention. Mm-hmm. So it's great that you've come in behind that as well and supported that. Now I'm going to talk about. You touched on the fact that you were nominated for the Te Tangata Tiriti Award, and so you attended the awards dinner. Yes.
It was beautiful.
So tell us about your experiences at the awards dinner, and sort of one of the things that stuck in your mind that you took away from it.
Yeah. So traditionally speaking, I hate award shows.
Right.
But here's the thing: the whole week I was like, love these people. Hate award shows. Like, it's just, it's my thing.
Yeah, right.
If there's not a Kaylee involved, I'm like, I'm not going. So I was like, no, trust in the people. They're good vibes. So I went along, and it was a brilliant night.
It was a good night.
Yeah. There was just so much, like, wairua in the place.
Yeah.
I was crying the whole night.
Were you? Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh,
this
wow.
is beautiful. Yeah, the whole night. I was really moved by the whole thing. It was done really well, and just so much culture in the room.
It was. It was a good vibe. It really was. And so your anxiety or your introverted wasn't affected?
Loved it.
Great. That's fantastic.
Yeah, because, I think everyone's so genuine in the room. Like some of these award shows you go to and you're like, oh my God,
I know.
This is just so the schmoozing and the it's not my thing. But this was just really, it was a cultural experience. That's all
great.
I can really.
Great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and we came away, because I went with Kelsey and Danny as well.
Yeah, that's right.
And we came away just like so in awe.
Yeah.
And really supported by the Māori community as well.
Yeah, we do. It's not always obvious support, but we often feel what the migrant community is going through. Because, it's a similar experience to a lot of us as being minorities as well.
Yep.
You know, we face those sorts of challenges as well.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's great. So I understand you're also you yourself are a member of KUMA.
Yes.
Your recent membership.
Yeah,
into KUMA?
Exactly. So we joined last month.
Yeah.
Yeah. And went to the first Kai Kōrero.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was really good. And it's just really a great relationship to keep the pulse on both demographics in the community and the gaps and the solutions, and be part of that solution for both of us that are kind of in, as you said, in that underrepresented category.
Yes, very much.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed
fantastic. And so the nomination that you got for Te Tangata Tiriti Award, how did that recognition make you feel, or what did it mean to the Kiwi Kit community to gain that nomination?
It meant more than I think we realised.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Because it's not been easy for the trust for the last 3 years. It's been pretty difficult, but we're getting to a place now where we're able to contribute and get the funding that we need to help the people.
Yeah.
So there was many emotions when we got that recognition. And we just couldn't believe it, really.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Because, as you know, I've sort of been connected in with you guys for a little while now. We've always been there and thereabouts. I've always tried to come along and support anything you guys have got going on. And you guys really do fantastic work. You know, especially with Danielle, Franco, you know, he was probably the first guy that I met from your group the first time, and he was just so active and everything. And, of course, Kelsey came along after that as well. So, you guys are really well regarded here, and I work in QLDC, so I see you guys coming up on the radar within QLDC as well.
Yeah, awesome.
So, you're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, and we're definitely on that journey to understanding and, developing ourselves and as an organisation on that tangata tiriti. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we're close to wrapping up, and thank you so much for the chat. Now I'm going to ask you a quick question. It's one single quick fire question.
Oh yeah.
Yep. You might have to take a little bit of time to think about it, or you might just know the answer. Right?
Let's see.
So if you could go back in time, and if you could give some advice to 18-year-old you, what would that advice be?
Probably that I have nothing to prove in this lifetime.
Ooh, love it. Love it. You don't have to live up to anybody's anything.
No.
Yeah. Did you have trouble with that when you were younger? With thinking that you had to? Yeah.
So before I left the UK, there was a 6-month period where I had left a relationship, I had left my job, and put my home up for rent, and then packed a bag and left the country. So I changed everything in my life. And I realise now that prior to that, all the things I was aiming for in life were to meet the expectations of other people and society.
Yeah.
And then it was like, no, thank you.
Fantastic. Great lesson. Lesson to learn. And that almost wraps up our chat today. So, important thing is, if anyone wanted to get a hold of you or the Kiwi Kit Community Trust, what's the easiest way to contact you?
Probably to go on to any of the social media, Facebook, Instagram.
Right.
And we are the Kiwi Kit Community Trust, and we've also got the kiwikitcommunitytrust.org website. So pick and choose.
Right, fantastic.
Yeah.
And any last comments before we sign off?
That I'm just very proud of KUMA for what they've done.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I am too, and I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
Well done. Nō reira, e mihi atu nei ki a koe, e taku hoa. Thank you so much for our chat today, Gemma. Really appreciate it. It's always good to see you as well.
Likewise.
And e te iwi, remember, if there are any questions, if you have any comments, questions for Gemma, pop them down in the comments section below. And remember to like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time on The Chew. Mā te wā.